we got to get to some clips from this Donald Trump interview with John Dickerson over the weekend. This was amazing. As I say, he's losing what little he had. Is this in order?
This is two.
Wait, two is okay. So, and we'll get, and as I keep teasing it, we'll get to the latest failure on healthcare. But this is Donald Trump speaking with John Dickerson about his lying about protecting people with pre-existing conditions and his proposals to gut healthcare. And not only does he not want to talk about it, he wants to, he's learned the lesson from dropping some Tomahawk missiles on Syria, which is why it was so moronic that people like Fareed Zakaria praised him, because now he gets that the way to get broad-based approval is war. So he does not want to talk about his pre-existing lies. He wants to talk about something way more important. Here he is with John Dickerson.
Some of the news reports, which are so unfair, and they say we don't cover pre-existing conditions. We cover it beautifully.
Although,
I'll tell you who doesn't cover pre-existing conditions. Obamacare. You know why? It's dead.
in one of the fixes
It's not
that
gonna
was
be here.
in one of the fixes that was discussed, pre-existing was optional for the states.
Sure, in one of the fixes, and they're changing it
Oh, okay,
and
so it'd be
changing
permanent.
Of course.
Okay.
This
Well, that's
has
a development, sir. So,
Well,
so you're saying it's going to be pre-existing for
John,
everybody?
this has
Doesn't-
evolved over a period of 3 or 4 weeks. Now, we really have a good bill. I think they could have voted on Friday. I said, just relax. Don't worry about this phony 100-day thing. Just relax. Take it.
The only person that is worried about this phony 100-day thing is Donald Trump.
Right.
There is no one, including his most ardent critics, who have remotely the level that this neurosis that this guy has about the 100-day things. It's hilarious. I feel like auto-tweeting him #100 days. Forever.
I said, just relax. Don't worry about this phony 100-day thing. Just relax. Take it easy. Take your time. Get the good vote and make it perfect.
Just to
But
inform-
we're going, most importantly, we're going to drive down premiums. We're going to drive down deductibles, because right now deductibles are so high, you never, unless you're going to die a long, hard death, you never can get to use your health care because the deductibles are so high.
Okay. So what I hear you saying is pre-existing is going to be in there for everybody. It's not going to be up to the states.
Pre-existing is going to be in there, and
And it's
we're
not
also
up to the
going to
states.
create pools.
Okay.
And pools are going to take care of the
But on that
pre-existing.
crucial question, it's not going to be left up to the states. Everybody gets pre-existing no matter where they
No,
live.
but the
guaranteed.
states are also going to have a lot to do with it,
Okay.
because we ultimately want to get it back down to
Is it
the
a
states.
guarantee?
Look,
'Cause-
if you hurt your knee, honestly, I'd rather have the federal government focused on North Korea, focused on other things than your knee, okay? Or than your back, as important as your back is. I would much rather see the federal government focused on other things, bigger things. Now, the state is going to be in a much better position to take care because it's smaller.
People out there with pre-existing conditions, they are worried. Are they going to have the guarantee of coverage if they have a pre-existing condition, or if they live in a state where the governor decides that's not a part of the health care, or that the prices are going to go up? That's the worry. The American Medical Association says
We actually
it could
have a-
effectively make coverage completely unaffordable for people.
We actually have, well, forget about unaffordable. What's unaffordable is Obamacare, John.
So I'm not hearing you, Mr. President, say guarantee of pre-existing
We
conditions.
actually have a clause that guarantees.
Okay, excellent.
We
got
have a
there.
specific
Let me ask you
clause
about
that
your tax
guarantees.
plan.
Go ahead.
Okay, three quick points. Number one, the only thing that they can do, and they've talked about doing, is holding subsidies hostage in the markets, which will affect lower income people in the exchanges, and it will put healthcare out of reach under Obamacare. That's something that they've talked about doing as an extortion tactic inside the White House. Number two, and this is from a piece that came out this morning in Talking Points memo, 5 points why the GOP care repeal bill terrified moderates. It explains why, once again, in spite of massive pressure from Republican House leadership and from the White House,
And promises of money from the Kochs and those guys.
promises of money from the Kochs and threats of not money, I would assume as well, why Obamacare repeal has failed again, because of the moderate, quote unquote, moderate Republican centrist Tuesday group. And this is, of course, just means that, like, they're ultra right wing Republicans who, recognize that some people have Medicaid, and there's some voters in their district who might be pissed off if all of a sudden they can't get health care anymore because they had skin cancer at some point. So the number one reason is because of pre-existing conditions. The new bill, of course, would not protect them. Many Republicans have made the statement saying they want to protect people with pre-existing conditions, but this amendment calls into question that protection, that guarantee. This is Charlie Dent, Republican of Pennsylvania. Under the newly adopted amendment to the bill, states could apply waivers to Obamacare's community ratings, essentially the cost protections for the sick and the elderly. If the waiver is granted, insurance companies could drastically hike premiums on people with serious medical conditions. That's the question that he was just dodging and clearly had no idea what it meant. Now, there's many other reasons, including still decimating Medicaid and shifting burdens onto elderly people. But the third thing I just want to point out is that this is why people like us oppose the Syria strike. Because now this is all this moron wants to talk about. Like, who's time for healthcare? I'm a wartime leader.
Come on.
I can threaten.
You
North
got a
Korea.
bum knee, so what?
Yeah, exactly. You got a bum knee. There's people that bomb. How about a bum? I destroy you. I incinerate your body with a tomahawk missile. And then Fareed Zakaria likes me. That guy's Indian. He never liked me before. A beaky boar war bar. What do you think, Waz, before we get to more of this interview?
What's interesting to me is, do we think that Mike Pence doesn't find a way to actually pass a Freedom Caucus-backed Obamacare repeal?
I think that I don't. So it seems to me now that like there is about 16 members of the House Republican caucus that are really genuinely terrified of actually gunning Obamacare. And it's also clear that obviously Mike Pence is a lot more competent than Donald Trump. Paul Ryan's obviously a lot more competent than Donald Trump. And Paul Ryan clearly had no strategy, no plan, and no actual agenda to do this. So actually, the more it plays out to me, because Trump is such a buffoon, it's almost like the reverse effect. He said, of course, that he was the greatest negotiator and everything would be great and blah, blah, blah. He's actually, in some ways, is the most effective excuse now for them not doing anything. Because I almost feel like they could say behind closed door, I mean, look, this jackass is the president. How can you expect us to get anything done? But if these 16 guys are really concerned that they don't want to get rid of protections for pre-existing conditions and they don't want to desecrate Medicaid, that is almost getting to the point where as right-wing and as crazy as they are, like, they're not Republicans.
Right.
Like, the Republican agenda is to destroy health care for middle-class and poor people to subsidize tax giveaways to the rich. That's the plan.
Right.
So if you object to that on the merits, you ain't in the Paul Ryan agenda. You're not in the Mike Pence agenda. And obviously he has no idea.
The thing about that agenda, though, is it was never meant to be governing in the first place. It was just to turn out their supporters.
Exactly.
The other interesting thing is if there's 16 guys that are on the fence publicly about it, that means there's probably another guys that are saying they're for it, but
just wouldn't do
but
it.
know that it's not going to happen. So I might as well go with Trump. So
Hey, folks, the Majority Report YouTube page is in a bit of a crisis right now because of changes in their algorithms. Our YouTube revenue has been clobbered. We need your help. Just a couple of bucks a month would really help us out and keep this channel going. Head over to our Patreon page to find out more information. The URL is right here.